What is your sugar mama story? Story 1. 6 or so years ago, I was just out of college in Southern California living with my grandpa and asked out a Chinese grad student after meeting her at work. On our second date, she picked me up in a shiny black Audi. Said her parents leased it for her. We went to a Chinese restaurant. I had paid for food on our first date and just assumed I would keep on doing so, despite making $15 an hour at the time, because I'm a red-blooded Korean-American man. So when she started ordering lobster, duck, and enough food to feed 8, I started getting a bit nervous. The check came and I reached for it, but she snatched it away, got out her wallet and pulled out 3 Benjamins like it was nothing. When she did that, I couldn't help but catch a glimpse of the stack of crisp bills, all of which seemed to have a similar pattern, with Benjamin Franklin's bald head peeking out over the top. She had to have at least 2 G's in there. I don't like going to the bank, so I just get it all at once, she said. I had way less in my name than she had in her wallet. Anyway, she paid for the $200+ meal and let me have the leftovers. Had my meals set for the next week. From then on, we alternated paying for dates. My meals would be on the $1 sign or $2 sign on Yelp, hers $3 sign plus. She eventually would pay for Disneyland tickets, Laker games, and some fantastic meals before 5 months later she graduated, her student visa expired, and she went back to China. She was really down to earth too. Once we went to a spot near downtown and she street parked in Skid Row. I advised against it, motioning to the homeless encampments, but she said it was no big deal. Chill. Her English was good enough to hold a conversation, but once we were lying in bed, it was kind of a lull. And she said out of the blue, "I'm funnier in Chinese," which I thought was hilarious, but also sad. Maybe because of that, we didn't text much outside of planning our weekends. I sometimes wondered whether she had 2 or 3 boyfriends that she was just cycling through. She didn't have Facebook, only Weibo, or some other Chinese social media. I'd texted her a few years ago, but the normally blue bubbles were now green. Still, we had a lot of fun, and she helped me get through those post-grad broke-ass blues. Hope she's doing alright. If this girl hadn't been Chinese and instead been a blonde, southern ex-sorority girl, it wouldn't have been that different from my experience. We alternated who paid as well, but I took her to cheap ethnic spots and a few fun neighborhood bars. She wanted to go to the all farm-to-table and sushi spots. This was in Atlanta. It was definitely a rebound. She had just made partner at a big corporate law firm, was from an extremely wealthy family, and was definitely sensible with her purchases. Drove a Civic, but also liked a lot of nice stuff. Had a really nice condo she renovated herself and wore a Rolex she bought herself on her 30th. When I moved out of Atlanta, I was 25 and she was 34. Sometimes she would have some really deep, sad thoughts about her future. I think a lot of her girlfriends were already married with kids, and she definitely wanted that too. I tried to help her out with that sort of stuff, but I was just a 24-year-old making $17 an hour in a dead-end job, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. She was really pretty, and I think for a while she put too much stock in that. She's been married for 2 years, and they are trying to have kids. I'm glad she's doing well. She texted me congratulations when I got married a few weeks back. Story 2. My dad broke up with my mom and now lives with an 80-year-old. He's 50. She's rich and he's basically homeless. But he's handsome and looks good with her. She supplied his cocaine addiction for years, and then she also supplied him money to chase me and my mom through the courts over custody. My son. He would never keep a job for very long and lived at home even after he married a woman who is older than me, and I am 64 years old. She wasn't rich, but she had properties that they sold. Do you know how weird it is for me to say my daughter-in-law is older than me? She's probably old enough to be my mother. Story 3. Went out drinking with my cousin on a Thursday night, and we ended up meeting a MILF at the bar he'd hooked up with before. It's closing time and he invites me over to her place to keep the party going. I was supposed to stay at his place, so I didn't really have anywhere else to go. At the end of the night, she made me a bed in her guest room. I woke up the next morning with a terrible hangover and people were rushing around, and I was like, what the fuck is all this noise? I emerged from the bedroom, and sitting at the kitchen table is my cousin, the MILF, and her 2 high school-aged kids. Mind you, I'm 22 at the time and my cousin is 23. MILF packed us lunches while she made her kids' lunches and sent us off with brown paper bags and Gatorade. The kids were less shocked than I was. I think they were used to it. Wow, surreal. Any insight into whether it was her place alone, or whether ex-hubby was paying for the smash pad, Like, was she the biggest realtor in town? Before you noble folks get up in arms, the only sugar mama I knew spoiled her boy exclusively with money paid to her in alimony from the ex. That always struck me as particularly cold. Story 4. Ex constantly bought me food and would give me money if I wanted beer or weed, but would then leave the beer and weed knowing I would drink or smoke it all. She only ever came to my apartment for hookups and would then leave when I couldn't get it up again. Her mom would drop off groceries every week. She bought me my second car ever, paid for my college classes, and helped me get my life on track, really. It ended pretty quickly when I told her I thought I was in love with her. Story 5. I was really drunk at a party. I was about to leave, and I was pretty hungry. The girl I was talking to on Tinder lived like 2 streets over. I can't believe she actually did it. She left Pop-Tarts out on the front porch for me. I was once doing a social experiment on Tinder. I know I suck, but to be fair, my profile picture was Bella Thorne, so if someone thought I was real, that's on them. And I met a guy on there who knew I wasn't real, just wanted some memes. Anyways, we are talking and he tells me how his car broke down and he had to leave it at one of the shadier motels in town until the next day. He was pretty worried about his car. It was a nice Mustang, 'cause tires get stolen sometimes. It turned out that the motel was the one next to my boyfriend's apartment complex, so I went to check on it for him. All was good, and I healed a lot of anxiety for this random Tinder dude that night. Story 6. Screwed a MILF. Next morning, she made me breakfast and cut my hair. Someone making you breakfast the morning after you stayed over at their place is just a normal hookup thing, not anything to do with sugar mamas. Cutting your hair for you is just kinda random and weird. It's really nothing to do with sugar mamas. A sugar mama would like to pay for you to get a really expensive haircut at a salon. Story 7. I did once visit a guy who had a sugar mama, a friend of the girl I was dating at the time. He was this average-looking 20-year-old stoner kid who was living in a nice house in the city. His sugar mama was paying for him to go to community college. I dated a guy who was smart but woke up at 2 p.m. and worked at a late-night restaurant at night. I signed him up for community college and had him sign some papers, and he started going and then transferred to UCLA, and was the first in his family with a college degree. I was not a sugar mama because I was in college and broke too, but I did help him navigate financial aid and admissions and resources like the writing center, since his grammar sucks. Also, as a UCLA student, I showed him where to go to get his healthcare taken care of, and he got his colitis under control, which was also a reason why he was kind of stuck in life. Bad health. We broke up, but we're still friends on Facebook and both have our own families now. They say not to change people, but there are some people that you see potential and just need a little push to get going. He's a chill dude and always appreciated my bossiness. Story 8. Not exactly a sugar mama, but I have a second Tinder account with my age set to 40. In the bio, I just straight up say I'm actually 23 and looking to have sex with older women. It has worked a surprising number of times with some very attractive MILFs and cougars. That was my missed opportunity. I had a very attractive cougar that was after me. I was working in a gym at the time and she worked out at my gym 3 days a week as well as 2 other gyms other days. I was helping her train. We had a lot of good conversation and such. She tried to get me to go to dinner a couple of times. Me being young and clueless, I honestly took everything as just being nice. Then she mentioned that she was going to Australia for like 2 months and her friends bailed and she needed someone to go with. She said she would pay for everything if I went with her. It was at that moment that I realized she might be after a bit more than a friendship. This all happened to be right at the time when I was starting to talk to my now fiancé, so I chose to politely decline the Australia trip, though I do wonder how awesome that trip would have been. No regrets, I love my fiancé, but now she does know that I tend to attract cougars for some reason, and she enjoys poking fun at me for it. Story 9. A female friend of mine asked me if I'd be interested in becoming a friend with benefits, so we came to a mutual agreement and hung out a few times a week at my place. After the first week, she started bringing me food. The second week, she cleaned my kitchen, and by the third week, we were no longer just friends with benefits. I'm not sure you understand what a sugar mama is. Someone bringing you food for a week and cleaning your kitchen once because they're trying to get into a relationship with you isn't a sugar mama, or anything even remotely close to it. Did this girl pay for most stuff for you throughout your relationship, take you on really expensive dates that she paid for, and buy you really expensive gifts that you didn't reciprocate? Because that's what a sugar mama is. I had that once, but I wasn't into it. It was crazy. Turned out that being a nice guy to the friend with benefits was sending her nesting signals. We agreed to friends with benefits, but she was sick one day and I, coming back from a business trip, brought her food on my way home. I also did dishes while she cooked a meal for me and helped clean up after I stayed over. Apparently doing those things for a friend meant I was in love. I guess her friends were not as nice or something. Story 10. This happened in Tokyo around 5 or 6 years ago. Met a client at work when I was 26 or 27. She was 32 or 33. She was really cute, very smart, and educated, and we got on very well together. She was a bit of a train geek. She liked riding trains. Fairly common in Japan, but rare for a woman. She had a lot of cute quirks like that. She could tell you the make and model of every pantograph on every train in operation in Japan. Anyone who knows Japanese politics has heard her name before. I didn't know who she was when we first met, but my boss later on told me to treat her like a VIP at all times. Anyway, our work project wrapped up, and we decided to go out for a bite at a nearby restaurant. She tells me she needs help preparing for an interview at a very famous company for a unique role that they would essentially be creating just for her. I told her I'd be happy to help her with it. I didn't have any ulterior motives. I genuinely liked her and wanted her to succeed. We met up again to do the interview prep, and one more final practice after that. She invited me to play darts with her after we'd finished, since she apparently enjoyed darts and I'd never played before. We went out to a darts bar in the early evening, and somehow we ended up playing a game where the loser of the game had to drink tequila shots. She mopped the floor with me, but we both started doing shots until well past the last trains home. Eventually, we wound up going to an internet cafe to spend the rest of the night, but things progressed pretty quickly. She got touchy-feely, and we decided to get out of there and go to a hotel together, and so began our relationship. She turned out to be richer than God. She would buy all kinds of stuff for me, would never let me pay for dates, even though I was making very good money for my age, and wanted to take me on all kinds of trips around Asia. She bought me some very nice watches and clothes, which I still have and cherish to this day. She had a Benz and Aston Martin and some other cars just lying around in her parking spaces in the middle of Tokyo. Probably would have married her if it weren't for some complications with her marital status. I found out about that after a few weeks of dating. It was a bit of a tragedy, really. It turned out she was in a terrible, loveless marriage and had a young child. I found out about it after we'd already been going out for a while. At first, it made me uncomfortable to be in that situation, but I started to understand that she was trapped in it, and due to societal pressure, she had no real way of divorcing. Neither of them wanted to continue their marriage, and both of them were seeing other people, but due to their very high profile in the Japanese media, a divorce was out of the question. We ended up breaking up when we realized having a kid together would cause irreversible damage to her political career, and that a divorce to marry a white guy would be the end for her professionally. That really sucked. But it was the truth. She was the best girlfriend I've ever had. If I had met her 3 years earlier, I'm sure my life would have been completely different now. Not for the money. Couldn't care less about that. I've never really met someone I connected with so well. Really, the one that got away. Story 11. Met a 30-year-old widow on Xbox when I was 19. She said she played Xbox to pass the day because she was financially set for life when her husband passed, and wanted to make some Xbox friends. We started playing more and more until I couldn't keep up because my controller and headset broke. She asked for my address, and after a week, I got a brand new controller and headset. I couldn't thank her enough and asked what I could do in return, to which she replied to just keep playing with her. Over the next few years, she occasionally buys me new games when they come out, and even a few collector's editions if I want them. Eventually, we drifted apart because I couldn't find the time to play with my school and work schedule. I still miss her and occasionally try to find her online again, but can't remember her gamertag or Facebook. She will always be one of the best gaming buddies I've ever had. I know what it's like when friends leave the game for various reasons in their real lives. You miss joking and talking to them, and the game loses some of its allure. I don't even use my mic anymore. I had a similar thing happen to me. Was a mod for a small UK streamer a couple of years ago. One guy/gal popped in more and more regularly and eventually donated a bunch of money and helped this guy get off the ground. They really seemed to like me and would send me a bunch of Steam codes for games for me to play with/against them. Never heard their voice. I think it was a guy, but you never know. Whoever it was, they were a really nice person who probably bought me $200 worth of Steam games just to have someone to play with. I tried to message them on Steam since I'm still friends there, but I think they stopped. Story 12. I got a free personal training session at Equinox Gym. This woman working out there must have been working the same routine I was doing because during the session we ran into each other non-stop at the same benches/machines, joking about it a ton eventually, then chatting her up at the end of the session. Super pretty and fit 41-year-old, incredibly intelligent with her own private practice doing fun time therapy. We seemed to click. I'm 26. After my session, the trainer/salespeople allowed me to stay and keep working out on my own. Then this therapist lady made her way back to me, probably since the trainer was gone, and we continued talking and exchanging numbers to get together sometime. I figured, what the hell, might as well try for this one. No more than 5 replies to our first text conversation, she straight up tells me I'm super cute, and she's always busy, so she's looking for a casual hookup relationship with me. Oh, how convenient, I'm in the same boat. Luckily, she lives pretty close by too, so I've been going to hers about once a week for the last 2 months or so just to have sex and hang out. Oh, and she's also really into the zodiac and tarot cards, and she likes to analyze me and eventually wants to read my cards. I don't know, whatever. Small price to pay. And to be honest, it actually is pretty interesting and sort of sexy when she talks about it. Now, this wasn't a sugar mama type at first, but we started going out to dinner just for fun, and even though it's not datey really, she's paid for everything since. Then it evolved into buying me some really nice things. Nothing too personal like clothes, but she's gotten me some nice bottles of scotch, a candle she liked, you know, nice gift type things. Well, this week, these gifts just went a step further. She's going to Barbados in February, and after jokingly saying I'd love to go, she booked me a ticket because, well, she felt like it. I'm also an avid surfer, so she wants me to surf all morning while she sleeps in and basically bang her on different parts of the island. I'm dropping $0. Adamant about not having a relationship outside of a casual one though, for numerous reasons. It isn't for her, and having spent enough time with her, I think she's genuine and I believe her. She definitely likes to spend money on me, but not in frivolous ways, like the more clear-cut sugar mamas. Still, I think the situation fits well enough to comment about. Who knows? Maybe she'll start funding my business. Story 13. I hadn't seen her for about 2 months. She was 10 years my senior. We worked together, and there were always those certain looks throughout the year. She was going through a divorce with a well-to-do architect, and we previously bonded over depressive situations we were going through. It wasn't until I handed my resignation in and told the staff I was moving states did it kick off. She said we should go get a drink one night. Nothing happened. Then, she invited me round to her place. 3 awesome kids, anything I wanted booze-wise, food, great cook, meals, and drinks out too. Very in shape, and we absolutely bonded very well in the bedroom too. It was almost perfect, except for me having to sneak out at the crack of dawn before the kids woke up. This continued for about 7 weeks. I had my car packed and ready to go, and we spent one last night together before I moved. We said our goodbyes and I drove off. Last I heard from her as per the arrangement/her request. It could have worked out, I felt. Story 14. In my early 20s, I met an older woman around mid-40s in a bar. She was drinking alone, and I stood by her to order a drink. She leaned over and gave me all kinds of compliments about my body. I said thanks and that she looked great too. She gave me her business card, reeled her, and told me to text her around 2 a.m. I did. She rolled up to my place in a super nice Benz, woke up, and she was gone. Next weekend, texted me an address and to be there at 8 p.m. and to clear my entire weekend for her. I did. She had a really nice 8-bedroom house. She was wild, taught me a thing or two, and let me explore all kinds of crap I didn't even know I was interested in. The next weekend, same thing. I showed up and she had so much stuff for me. Really nice high-end clothes and shoes. Bought all kinds of kinky toys for me to use on her too. She made me into a half-ass dom, and I would tie her up and do just about anything I wanted to. We had a good time. Then she fell off the face of the earth. I don't regret it one bit. She was really nice and spoiled the crap out of me. She made me food and would bring it to me while I was in bed. Massaged my body damn near every day. She would sleep in a different room, and between the sexy times, we would have long, lengthy conversations about anything and everything. Story 15. When I was 19, I dated a 35-year-old lady. She was not super rich herself, but her dad was, and she was very much a daddy's girl. Anyway, her dad was a realtor who made a ton of money by war profiteering. Essentially, rich people sell huge houses at a massive loss in unstable countries when they think conflict is getting too local. Her father would buy the home cheap, and if it survived the war, he would turn around and sell them with huge margins after the conflict settled. That was his business. Anyway, he kept up with his rich clients and sold them vacation mansions in the States later on. Rich folk have such money to waste. He then paid his daughter, my girlfriend, $800 a month to check in on the client's mansions once a month or so to make sure the mansion hadn't burned down or something. Keep in mind, his clients lived in Dubai, London, and never came to their vacation home in the States a single time in 20 plus years, despite spending all of the money to get them furnished and everything. So me and my girlfriend would just go to the mansion and just sleep in the mansion for a while sometimes. I've known other well-off people, but to this day I have not set foot in another home as huge as that mansion. Their master bedroom had a separate room where the entire ceiling would shower water. 50 people could all shower at the same time there. I got to shower there by myself on several occasions. Story 16. Today I learned I should get a sugar mama, date a MILF, or just date older women in general. Literally talked with my wife about this yesterday. She told me how she could probably see herself with an older man no older than 50, and I told her about some great MILF stories I read on here, and how I could absolutely do the same. We talked about how dating an older, more mature person probably would have worked best for us if we both weren't mature and found each other at such a young age. Then this pops up on my feed today. Gotta share this with her. Story 17. My time has come. I met an older MILF when I was 27. She was 43. And I think it was really more of a boy toy situation, though we were still friends. She would basically take me all around the state on her trips as a sales rep when I had the days off from my own job. And we'd stay at hotels and just screw half the night. Then we'd wake up, screw again, and be on our way. It lasted for just over a year, and honestly, I was just so spoiled by her in terms of sex. She loved to screw out in nature, and before it ended, we had screwed in 3 national parks. We even had a thing where we'd impersonate the Count with 2 national parks, and then laugh like idiots. Story 18. This happened to me a couple of years ago. I was back home from college on a break and matched with this girl on Tinder. She seemed pretty cool, and we texted for about 3 days, then decided to meet up and get some sushi. She came over to my house first and parked in front of my house, my mom's house, for like 15 minutes and texted me that she was too shy to come in. Eventually she walked up. We got sushi and then went back to my place. One thing led to another, and pretty soon we were doing the horizontal hokey pokey in my bedroom. She stayed the night, and we hung out and got breakfast the next morning. She said she had to go to the mall to return some stuff and asked if I wanted to tag along. I said sure, why not? We go to the mall and she's returning some clothes or something, so I'm just looking around the store. I found this sick-ass Patagonia jacket, and as I was checking it out, when she was done, she saw me checking it out and asked if I wanted it. I said hell yeah, but it's like $250. I just laughed. She took it off the rack and went to the counter. I thought she was just really committed to the bit until she pulled out a manila folder full of $100 bills. My jaw dropped and I probably made a weird sound. She just looked at me and winked. We left the mall and I had my dope-ass jacket all bagged up. I asked her about the money and she just said don't worry about it. We had been talking for a couple of days and I knew a lot about her at this point and knew she worked a close to minimum wage job. I just let it go. She drives me back to my house and before I get out of the car, she says hold on and pulls out the folder. I asked what she's doing and she just throws $600 into my bag. I felt weird and tried to give it back. She said, don't worry about it, I have a bunch. She opened up her purse and pulled out like 6 or 7 of these manila folders. Eventually, she convinced me to keep the money and I was just like, screw it, I'm a hooker now, I guess. I go back to my school and she goes back to hers. Over the next few months, she would randomly drop anywhere near $100 to $500 in my Venmo every week or so. We continued texting and she just kept buying me crap. If I mentioned being hungry, she'd order a pizza or something for me and my roommates. If I mentioned I needed or wanted anything, I could expect to see it in an Amazon box on my porch a couple of days later. It was fun. I go back home again on my next break and decide we should meet up again. This time, we skipped the sushi and went straight to doing the bippity-boppity-boo. Again, things go great. She stays the night and we watch a movie the next morning. She eventually decides it's time to leave and puts 10 $100 bills on my coffee table. At this point, I know she won't take no for an answer, so I just take the loot and say thanks. She drives off and waves bye to me. Everything seemed normal. A few hours pass and I go to text her, but it doesn't go through. Weird, but whatever. More time passes, but my texts still won't go through. I tried to message her on Snapchat and it looks like she deleted me or blocked me or something. Turned out she blocked me on every form of social media. I was pretty confused. I just played it cool and tried not to be a weirdo and call her a bunch or anything. Break ends and I go back to school again. Still haven't heard a word from this chick. Then at 2 a.m. one night I get a call from a blocked number. Shocker, it's her. I asked her what was going on and she just shushed me. She was whispering, but not sexy whispering. She sounded super serious, and a little scared even. She just told me that I can't tell anyone about our interaction together, her name, or anything. She even asked me to delete pictures she sent me of herself. I ask what the hell's going on, and she just tells me she has to go. I hung up the phone and never heard from her again. Still got the Patagonia though. Story 19. I went to a bar one time and this cougar kept ordering pitchers of beer for me. One thing led to another and I went home to her place. Woke up the following morning to find out she was an E7 and I was an E4. Fast forward to later in the relationship, she told me that she wanted to get engaged before she left for her next I agreed, so we went to a jewelry store. Asked me if I wanted an engagement present too. I picked out a fancy watch and she paid for everything. 2 days later, she changed her mind about the engagement and decided she wanted to be single. At least I got to keep the watch. Story 20. I don't have a specific story, but this was my father apparently when he was young. My grandmother told me how he would always go out with women twice his age. It was such a regular thing, I guess, that after dates, she'd just go, "So how old is she this time?" Many, many years later, and after my mother's passing, ironically she was only 3 years older than him, he's still doing it. He's in his 50s and his lower limit, and he ain't messing with no broke either. I wish there were more guys like your dad. My mom is 74 but looks 50-ish, and she'll sign up for dating sites, but guys her age don't want to date anyone older than 50, and they have not aged well at all. Believe me, I have spent time making decisions with her on her accounts. She just wants a nice, age-appropriate guy to travel with, and other things, but we do not speak of those. She doesn't want anything serious. Though probably doesn't want to be a sugar mama, although she is fully capable of that, but all dudes her age seem to want to date someone their junior by a lot. Even though she could pay for yearly trips to Europe for the couple, she would love the companionship of a guy like your dad. Story 21. Signed into my alt just to comment on this. I'm currently in a friends with benefits type thing with an older woman. I'm 23, she's with some sugar mama elements to it. Mostly that she buys me nice dinners and drinks, and I give her a good time in bed playing a Switch. We met on Bumble. She says she wasn't originally looking at guys my age, but her friend messed with the age thing without telling her and she matched with me. She's a professor/researcher, and I'm a grad student. Not her student, but in a similar field at the same university, so we have a lot in common. She didn't actually realize I was that much younger until we'd already been texting for a while, and had a date planned. But anyway, and the sexual tension was there from the start. I was pretty nervous the first time, but she has some dominant tendencies, especially in bed, so I think she found it cute. We screwed 4 times that night, and haven't slowed down much since. We aren't exclusive or anything. She goes out with other guys her age, and I go out with other girls my age. She actually encourages it. She even likes hearing me talk about it whenever I get laid with a younger girl. It's kind of a crazy whirlwind thing, especially since I was a virgin less than a year ago, but it's fun. I highly recommend it, although I feel like if I ever get famous or run for office or anything, it's going to get found out somehow and scandalize my entire extended family to death. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these ones, wink wink, please leave them down in the comments below for us to read. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.